by FAIRS, and it's a joint conference organized by AIDC, the Trade Union for Energy Democracy based in New York, as well as the Transnational Institute, also based in Amsterdam. So, like I said, I'm going to take quick introductions from everyone so that we know who is here, because this is a very important process to many of the discussions, the discourse out there around the just transition to a low carbon economy, and what we mean by that from a trade union perspective, civil society, and what do we envisage as the organizers of this conference by the just transition. So like I've already introduced myself, Darab Tembeka, starting on my right-hand side, so up until Shumi, we'll do those quick introductions. We welcome the comrade that has just entered the room now. Thank you.
I'm Daniel Chavez from Uruguay, but I live in the Netherlands and I work for the International
Hi everybody, I'm David Fick. I'm based here in Johannesburg. I'm a fellow of TNI, the Transnational Institute, and I'm an independent researcher. Most of my work is on the energy sector from an environmental justice perspective.
Thank you, Dave.
Good morning, my name is Mako Manigalagala, and I'm from Atlantic Africa, here in Zanzibar.
Sandra van Nieuwkerk, working for AIDC. And I'm based in Cape Town.
Sean Sweeney, Trade Unions for Energy Democracy, based in New York, the City University.
I'm Sam Mason from the Public Commercial Services Trade Union in the UK. Thank you, sir.
Morning all, I'm Batal Sonam from Salus, a trade union in South Africa.
Thank you.
Morning everybody, I'm Brian Ashley with the Alternative Information and Development Centre, AIDC, Cape Town.
I'm another Cape Townian, Richard from Project 90 by 2030. We're an environmental India and I have an interest in energy.
I'm Richard W. I work with the Frederick Ebert Stiftung as of last month as Project Manager on Climate and Energy.
My name is Dave. I work for Chisimani Center for Education in Cape Town.
Morning everyone, my name is Wansile Brown. I come from NUMSA, trade union in South Africa. Thank you.
Morning, I'm Sebastian. I'm from Uruguay and I was the former National Director of Industry in my country.
My name is Malika Jadun. I'm representing the Mausen Tribe.
My name is Mara from the Musa Tribe, Trade Unions again.
Good morning, I'm Martha Ryan from Trade and Industrial Policy Strategy, working on the sustainable growth.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Aisha Bahadur. I work for APS here in Johannesburg for the Trade Union Conference.
Morning all, my name is Joseph. I work for NUMSA.
Amanda. Amanda. Good morning, comrades. I'm Mr. Starad. I work with the South African International Council / Makua. Yeah, from Kumala.
Hi everyone, I'm Fiona Dove. I'm with the Transnational Institute in Amsterdam, but from Durban.
Hi everyone, my name is Zanet Msibi from Southern African Green Revolutionary Council / WAMU.
Morning everyone, my name is Kindile Molawa and I work for Food and Allied Workers Union here in Gauteng.
Thank you. Morning everyone, my name is Shona. I'm also with AIDC based in Cape Town.
Good morning, comrades. My name is Martin Kapwa. I work with the Sam Kamali Research Institute. In short, we call it SATRI. It's the research entity of NUM.
Sambona. Yeah.
Ikamaran Musadi Gabakwane, working for a Food and Allied Workers Union in South Africa.
Morning. My name is Gomo Emilia. I'm based in Northern Cape, working for Heart and Water Solar Plant and also in institution.
Amanda, aware to Amanda. Lona Mulaeni, this is Comrade Mulaeni Modi from Musa.
Comrade, just to say that the comrades from SATU, the second participant, Mirato, is also joining us during the course of the day, as well as Sharon and Buyo might join us later also in the day. And thank you for those quick introductions. I'm now going to allow Sandra and Fiona to say few words with regards to the progress. I'll start with Sandra and then take Fiona later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a context to the conference and what we're doing here. And many of you are very familiar with it, but I think it's important to understand why we've got the particular focus of this conference that we have got. So in 2011, when renewable energy first burst onto the scene in South Africa, it burst on in a privatized form through the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producers Procurement Program, which not only is a big mouthful, but was the first step actually to privatizing electricity in South Africa. And I think a lot of people didn't really recognize it at the time as a form of privatization. Partly because renewable energy was something seen as something that happened on the side. You know, main electricity generation was coal-based. But I think as time has gone on and as the Independent Power Producers Program has taken effect, and we know we've got solar plants and wind farms operating, the problems of the privatization of electricity started becoming more apparent. Not only were those specific plants, operating as privatized entities, but the notion that electricity in South Africa was being privatized kind of became more and more apparent that this could become an increasing problem. And then we started hearing about coal IPPs, coal independent power producers, also coming in being introduced in the same way as renewable energy. So I think the issue of privatization started rearing its head and becoming a bigger issue. Last year in 2017, with the threatened closure, Eskom then had the threatened closure of some of the coal mines, which really focused everybody's minds on the issue of electricity, what was happening in the electricity sector, and what the future of the electricity sector was. There was a huge fear of loss of jobs because of the closure of coal mines. I think the reaction of the unions, the reaction of communities made the issue of a just transition and the need for a just transition, both within the broader economy, but particularly in the energy sector, very, very important. And so there were a lot of workshops and discussions, about the just transition, what we meant by the just transition, and so on. What I think has been a little bit lacking, although there have been moves to start filling the gap, what has been a little bit lacking is what is our vision? Okay, so we've got an electricity, we've got the way electricity is structured now. We've got discussions about a just transition. But what is our vision of what we're actually heading towards? What is it that we want to come out of the just transition? What is the energy system that we want it to look like? And so, organizations started looking at community projects, at community initiatives, Project 90, Tasneem's project. So a lot of organizations started looking at, well, what can happen on the ground? What can happen at a community level around renewable energy and electricity? But I think the gap has been a focus on Eskom. What needs to happen at a public utility level in order to bring together discussions around renewable energy, just transition, and the kind of electricity sector that we want. Now, part of the problem in South Africa, for those who are not based in South Africa, and I'm sorry to the NUMSA comrades who work at Eskom, but a lot of people are very angry at Eskom. They see Eskom as the problem, why people get cut off from electricity, why municipalities don't have electricity, etc., etc. And we know that Eskom has been kind of caught up in the whole state capture issue. It's got financial issues, it's got governance issues. There's a lot of problems with Eskom. So I think there's been a tendency by some to kind of almost discount Eskom and say, well, you know, we need something else. Eskom's not our solution. And I think what we try to do through this conference is say, no, Eskom has to be part of our solution, but a transformed Eskom. Not an Eskom with all its problems and corporatization, etc. We need to look at a transformed Eskom that can integrate renewable energy into the electricity sector in a far more effective way. And I think that is the crux of what we're trying to do at this conference, is begin to explore what role could a transformed public utility play in a transformed electricity sector, which brings renewable energy, you know, to the forefront of electricity generation and distribution. So I mean, you know, these issues are going to be picked up a lot more during the day as we move forward. But we're very privileged to be able to bring together, you know, local trade unionists, community activists, environmental activists, and so on, together with some key comrades from overseas, from other countries, who can share some of their experiences with us around public utilities, around, you know, transitioning into renewable energy and so on. So a very big thank you to all of the people who have come to our workshop. Just to say that I grew up in Johannesburg, but I've lived most of my adult life in Cape Town. So of course, to the international guests, if we'd had this in Cape Town, you would have had a wonderful experience. But you survived Johannesburg, don't worry. Sorry. So welcome to Johannesburg, welcome to the workshop, and welcome to all the local people to the workshop. And we hope that it's a productive 2.5 days.
So, comrades, I'll be very quick because I didn't prepare a big speech. But just to say, I'm the director of the Transnational Institute. I used to work for Sakal many years ago, and I used to edit the Shop Steward magazine. I was the first editor of the Shop Steward magazine. I'm just saying that for the comrades who come out of the union in South Africa. That's my background. And my next chapter in life was the Transnational Institute. So one of the programs that we have, so maybe just to say, the Transnational Institute is a very old left-wing think tank. It was set up in 1974, and its intention is to help support the information and analytical needs of progressive movements around the world. One of the big challenges right now for everyone, everywhere, is climate. And the other big challenge is finally pushing the neoliberal paradigm over the cliff. And the two we see as very closely interconnected. My colleague Danielle will give a presentation in a minute, in the next session, that will make those links more apparent. But we have a range of programs. One of the big broad ones is on economic justice, and we look at things from an international perspective. So we don't have a local base anyway. We're bringing people together to share experiences transnationally, because we all face very similar forces, powers, and problems. TNI has this economic justice program. Part of it is to challenge all the obstacles to the vision that we want to achieve. And a lot of that is around the multinational corporations, the extent of state capture everywhere, not just in South Africa. This is a global phenomenon. The privatization of the people's assets everywhere, and the hollowing out, if you like, of democracy. That the dream of what we had all fought for in terms of the people, for the people, by the people, and so forth, that has been thrown in the dustbin of history through the Neoliberal project, and we want to reclaim that. Part of that program then is challenging those obstacles, and the other part, and that's the program that Danielle's involved with, and also Sebastian from Uruguay, is to look at how can we prepare for, so parallel to fighting the obstacles, the anti-work, how do we start preparing for the vision of what it is we do want? And how do we bring people together around the world to actually share that vision? Because you're not alone in these struggles. We need to share experiences, to work together, and to draw on each other. So that's what we see as our role here, is to help bring to South Africa some sense of what's going on elsewhere in the world, so that you can draw inspiration and also form alliances and so. So that's it for me, and I wish you a really inspiring conference, and we'll be following South Africa very closely.
Thank you, comrades. I think I'm now handing over to Sandra for facilitating the next session. All right. Yes.
Okay. So the next session is going to, we wanted to have, right at the beginning of the program, the voice of Labour talking about a Labour perspective and a Labour vision of the energy sector and electricity and energy transformations. So we invited Comrade Zwelinzima Barbie, who's the General Secretary of SAFTU. He is on his way, and we're hoping he should arrive any minute now. Then we're also going to have Comrade Mbodi from NUMSA, who will also share a bit of a vision of how NUMSA sees the energy sector. We had invited NUM also to give a perspective, but we haven't had any response from them. But what I would like to suggest is that we give Comrade Barbie and Comrade Mbodi a chance to speak, and then we open it up to the floor for discussion, where some of the other trade unions that are sitting around here can maybe also share some of their, and it's not restricted to the trade unions, but can share some of their perspectives. So very opportunely, we welcome Comrade Barbie.
Before I sit down.
Very good timing.
How can you say good timing? It's supposed to be at 8:45.
Excellent timing. I want to switch. I'm reluctant to switch this machine off because who knows if we'll ever get it working next weekend. So I'm just going to.
Okay, so Comrade, we were just saying that we're going to move on to the next session now, where we wanted to forefront the voice of Labour in talking about a vision for the energy sector and where we move to from here. We've got a range of trade unionists, community organizations, environmentalists, NGOs, and we've also got comrades from international, from other countries, who are also going to share their experiences with us. So I wanted to hand, Comrade Barbie, if I can hand over to you to give a little bit of an input. Should we move the table? Would that make it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm under alcohol.
I mean, would it be better if you had something that you could put it on?
Okay,
Yeah, I think it would be better. Comrade, you had it, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just for Peter's information. Remember last time when we went on a summit, and there was a government summit that was going to introduce a climate policy, blah, 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 blah. So, like I said, we were discussing without government, we as public and trade unions, we're discussing renewable energy this way, and government is thinking this way. So, did we invite anybody from the government? Because remember, you said sometimes to talk, whereas our leadership sits in the other side of the coin, whereas we are representing the public. It's big invite you, but we need to be in this conference. So I want to just know, did you invite anybody from the department?
No, look, we very much saw this as an opportunity for labor and civil society to thrash through the issues first and kind of discuss and debate, because we can't engage government until we're clear on our own vision, I think. And so I think very much we saw this as first, as that necessary step before we start engaging. All right. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to hand over to Comrade Barbie.
Good morning, comrades. I feel absolutely honored. And, thank you very much for inviting us and for asking us to make an input on our thoughts about a subject that has become much more popular in South Africa because of the events that are currently underway and all manner of political changes that are currently taking place in the country, where the ANC remains the ruling party with an overwhelming political majority everywhere at the national level, now under the leadership of somebody who is, in tough terms, coming from the other side, literally, and in every respect, and probably beginning to drive a program that is consistent with his own personal and class beliefs. Welcome to South Africa, all of my comrades, Asisha Bez and everyone else is here. And thank you very much, comrades, for coming over. And good morning to everybody that I've not seen in a good number of years. What I'm going to relate to you, basically, is no longer just a position adopted by SAFTU, but a position adopted by the 147 organizations that convened in the what we call the Working Class Summit that took place on the 21st and the 22nd of July here in Soweto, a historic working class summit that brought together trade unionists and organs of people's power across the board, irrespective of their political affiliation or persuasion, and irrespective of their historical background, irrespective of whether we worked with them in the past or not. But all of us recognized that the scale of the challenge we're facing in the country and probably everywhere else in the world is such that it cannot be tackled by just one organization working on its own, and that now time has arrived for the working class formations to coordinate their activities and to make sure that the struggles, what we call in silos, isolated in 11 divisions, which makes no impact whatsoever, are ended in favor of a more coordinated approach to the struggles that lie ahead. And obviously, one of the issues that made us to want to talk to each other about was the issue of energy. And in our country, it's, as I was saying, that it is becoming more popular, more topical than any other time in our history. I'm going to just almost read, but with additions, what came out in that declaration in relation to the issue of climate, environment, and the working class. The first thing that those 147 organizations made was that the underlying cause, the main reason why we are here today in this discussion. And the reason why there is excessive greenhouse gas emissions that then cause all of the climate challenges that we're going to be speaking about over the next three years is the system of capitalism that consistently seeks to expand production through whatever cheapest means possible, with only one aim: to maximize the profits for those who call themselves investors in various sectors of the economy. In South Africa and in the rest of the African continent, we in particular feel far more vulnerable. In this way, you will know that we're supposed to be the richest continent in the world, and yet we are the poorest in the world, owing to all manner of historic reasons. The principle of it being that we were colonized and we were jumped into a capitalist order, and unfortunately the system of colonialization in our country gave birth to a new wave of a problem, a leadership that didn't seek to find a common cause with the interest of ordinary people, a leadership elite that got captured by the former colonizers to advance their own interest in our continent. And I suspect that in South Africa, that's exactly what we are dealing with as we speak at this moment. This capitalist system depends on the exploitation of workers around the world, but it also depends on the exploitation of the planet's natural resources, as we are seeing in South Africa. It is also a system that creates a massive waste in the form of production that exceeds demand, or in the form of goods that are brought by, or that are brought and then thrown away because of managing the system of what we call the demand. The rich and the middle class in the developed countries enjoy the benefits of development paths that they took, but we cannot, but they are now saying that we cannot continue with the same path that saw them developing in their countries. And we probably, at this particular moment, want to impose all manner of rules. Some of them quite important, but which gets questioned in the context of the fact that they too embarked on the same path at some point of their history, which they now want to deny the developing countries from embarking upon. We're not just talking here about the issues of environment destruction or fighting for a clean world, but we're talking about all manner of other rules, be they from the trade point of view. In the World Trade Organization, the main battle between the developed North and the developing South is that some of the countries in the North want to impose all manner of new trade rules that we definitely show will impede the development of countries in the South. But what is more worrying is that these very same countries would have embarked on the same path at some point in their history. And now that they are on the top of the roof, they think that the rules must change. And we talk here not just about trade issues, but we also talk about the financial systems. We talk about financial and monetary policies, and we're talking about broader economic policies. The Manchindilane of imperialism, the Manchindilane Chavez, you must write this name. The Manchindilane is the watchman. The watchman of imperialism, which is the rating agencies and the Washington institutions, are the enforcers that make sure that the new rules as defined by them in the new game are such that they will keep the developing South exactly where it is now and only increase the gap between the North and the South. So we've got to talk about the issues of environment, not as an abstract concept, but as an issue that must be located within the politics of the world today, within the politics of the economy of the world today, within the context of whether the rules that are being implied are being enforced are the rules that will bring about fairness, but at the same time make sure that we do not unnecessarily, and this is another point where I think we are all should be cautioning ourselves. When I'm saying all of these things, it doesn't mean that we must jump into the Trump bandwagon. The Trump bandwagon says, do nothing. Everything is fine as it is now. Leave my capitalist friends to continue extracting everywhere else and make sure that they reduce the rules that can make sure that they do not move through and just leave everything. After all, Trump says there's no change whatsoever. This whole thing about environmental and climate change is a propaganda, probably from the CNN now is the principal enemy in the media, or from other scientists that he routinely attacks. We're not coming from that point of view. We all must recognize that the world is changing and that the environmental question and the climate change will destroy any development, including here in South Africa or in the rest of the African continent. And we cannot say because these guys did it in the past, we must also do it in the same way because we know what we're going to pay. And already we believe that the working class here in South Africa, and just like everywhere else in the world, is beginning to pay the real price for the current environmental destruction that is currently underway. We pay the cost of the poisoning of our water, and we are in Johannesburg, where this is mostly happening. The water beneath the soil here can no longer be used by human beings. It's completely poisoned. And we are told that there is millions and millions of water in this Johannesburg. But the mining industry and the fact that these guys are allowed to just walk away after extraction business have meant that we cannot use the water anymore. The destruction of our air by fossils, fuel extraction and the processing, the loss of homes literally, and I wish that we could have more time to just drive around in Mpumalanga to see what I'm talking about, to see how people's homes are literally cracking right 50% this way into the hole and 50% left standing. The destruction of the environment in some of the provinces of this country is simply shocking. The floods that we see, in particular in the east of South Africa, followed by sometimes long, unpredictable spells of drought, the fires that just break out in the Western Cape, and the failing of crops, and the livestock that are being destroyed, in particular in KwaZulu-Natal. Or we are now beginning to see the livestock getting thinner and thinner and dying. The farm workers that are forced to work in longer hours in the Western Cape in heat will suffer then from heat exhaustion and are not being paid for all manner of sufferings that go through, including suffering from ill health. All of these things are realities that are beginning to hit South Africa. And all of us can begin to speak more. We told that the Western Cape and Cape Town have just seen the breaking of the longest drought period that is over 100 years. We don't know for how long. We think that that thing can come back even before the water restrictions have been lifted. So it is from that point of reality, we're looking at the reality, that this thing is happening, and it is happening right now, not something that we used to read about in the books somewhere in 2008 or in 1994. We were warned that this climate global warming and we must prepare. It's no longer something that we can theorize about. This is beginning to be a hard reality for many workers and for many poor communities in South Africa. And let's emphasize, it is the poor, the working class, that is disproportionately suffering the consequences of a climate change here at home, just like anywhere else in the world. It is in that context that we support the 1 million climate jobs campaign and the demand to move to a socially owned renewable energy program. The Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Program currently puts electricity supply in the private hands, mainly the foreign companies. Down the road, we now know that the change of ownership will lead to even higher prices and or deploy electricity in a manner that will not be in the interest of the working class. Now, this is the battle in South Africa today. And people talk about the biggest crisis we face in this country is the crisis of unemployment, seeing 87.6% unemployment rate. But the other battle that is beginning to be massive, that the working class have to take up, is this drive by the multi-billionaire class to privatize energy in South Africa. This side, they're saying to us, we must protect the environment, we must move away from the fossil-based economy, we must do everything that we can, and we agree with them, that yes, we must do that. This side, they're saying, we must give as many licenses to the coal mining companies as it is possible. And they are doing it. And the fact that in Mpumalanga, despite the fact that they are bringing in these IPPs, but there is also the growth of mining, the coal mining activity in Mpumalanga, because they need it as entrepreneurs. These are the people from which they are eating from the crumbs of their tables. So the destruction of people's homes, you must go to Mpumalanga and somewhere in Middleburg. You will see the white goats turning literally black. I want you to go there. You will see the goats are now like this. They need to be washed. I don't know whether there can be a business where you wash goats, and I don't know how you can wash what they inhale into their lungs. So that's one side of the map. There is an increase in the mining activity that is promoting the fossils. And then on the other hand, they say we're going to introduce this program. And they've signed now contracts, mainly with multinational corporations. And you can see that the drive, basically, is not towards ensuring that we address the crisis of environment in South Africa. The drive is to hand over energy, including electricity distribution, to the private hands, to the private companies. So we've got a government that speaks on both sides of the mouth, and that acts this way but says this today. All of these three things are in contradiction with one another. There is no discussion of labor in South Africa about how we're going to be managing the transition. None whatsoever. There's a discussion behind the closed doors with the multinational corporations that are signing these agreements with the state that is hell-bent on handing over energy and these renewables to the private hands. The agenda is quite very clear when you look at it. The agenda is to eventually collapse the current company under the ownership of the state, ESCOM, and to destroy it eventually, and to allow these IPPs to be the main driver of energy sourcing in the country. It's quite very clear. There's no investment. In fact, ESCOM is one of the fellows that have to take a backing power to China recently. And they've been given, I think, 23 billion US dollars, and to justify the destruction, which was both political and sometimes you wonder if this was not just a calculated move by the 1% to destroy this thing that belongs to the people in order to find something that they will control and own as part of this mad drive to profit in the country. Now, if I had the power, there is a planned 3 days Friday in South Africa, which will take place in October, hopefully. If the Central Committee of SAFTU agrees, and if the leadership of this 147 organization agrees that we must have a 3 days total shutdown of the economy, which will take a new form altogether that have not been seen. We will ask workers to bring their blankets and to bring their water and the phone. South Africans who don't come from where I was born do not know what is the phone. There's the phone here. And get anything that can help them stay in town for 3 days. Minimum 3 days in town. We sleep there, we rally there, we chant there, and I think one of the demands we must make, now that I see a number of leaders here from the unions, is that we must demand an end to this thing. That this contract that have been signed must not be honored, and that there must be a deliberate investment on ESCOM to save it from these guys that were driving it to a near collapse, and that Ramaphosa and his friends, and sometimes there's even politics of family networks here that are standing to benefit from this thing, and that must be ended. And that we must refuse to leave town until the government have declared that those contracts have been thrown into the dustbin where they belong. So we're not going there to make just about the case about jobs and unemployment, poverty, inequalities. For we know that the drive of IPPs will destroy nearly 90,000 jobs immediately in Mpumalanga. Immediately 40,000. And eventually about 90,000 jobs will just disappear in the rest of Mpumalanga. And we know that Mpumalanga as a province cannot take that following the destruction of the steel industry in the same province just a few years ago. There used to be such a powerful steel plant in Mpumalanga that have gone under as a result of this neoliberal opening up of everything to what Trevor Manuel was called the chili wings of international competition. I think we must take a stand here, comrades, and refuse to leave town until Ramaphosa have announced that this program have come to an end. We must stand firm to call for the social ownership of the control of, we must name these things. And maybe today and tomorrow and Wednesday, we must continue to name them. To say, yeah, private sector, you don't touch. These are the assets of the people. And the working class must defend these assets. One of those assets is the energy. The second asset is the water. The third asset is the delivery of basic education, health. These things that we must say, these are untouchable. And unfortunately, in the slip of in the process of this confusion created by our former friend, Jacob Zuma, there is now a sneaking of this thing to save ESCOM. And it sounds very, very nice to people who say, yeah, what choice do we have? Look at the state of ESCOM. And for we know that the ideologues who are driving the program of privatizing always seek to destroy the company that must provide this energy in order to discredit the whole issue of the state ownership of these basics that we must defend, and they must continue to be in the hands of the people. The Constitution of South Africa states that everyone has the right to have access to sufficient food and water, and we must resist the privatization of water. In the Western Cape, it is happening. The reason why they will not drop the prices, even though the dams have gone to 50%, and it's because they are now enjoying the higher levels of tariffs. These guys, remember we said their drive is always privatize, profit, under all circumstances, even when there's a tragedy. So we must mobilize for the deep transformation of the current economic system of production and consumption, whilst at the same time including protecting workers' shop floor concerns. We have to find a way of consigning the interest of the working class for job retention, but also of ensuring that we don't get trapped permanently into an economy that will eventually destroy even those jobs that we are trying to defend today. What is the balance? And this workshop, in my view, must be talking about those practical issues. What is the balance? Because we shouldn't also do like the South African government is speaking. This side is saying we environmentalists, we want the end to the climate change, and on the other hand, we say we protecting our jobs under all costs, and we refuse to talk about a transition between today and the future that will save the world. At all times, we must defend, however, the exploitation of workers. Saving and creating jobs is a core responsibility of any trade union. In my view, a trade union that just signs off on the issue of jobs doesn't deserve its place under the sun. It must go. The first responsibility of any trade union is to defend the jobs. But in the context, and that 3 days, CLL strike must say, we want to talk to you about the just transition. If you don't have a plan of this just transition, we are not part of the game. We want to retain our jobs, but we understand that we must make a movement towards an economy that is free from that. And basically, that's what now unites the 147 organizations. They call it themselves now the working class movement. And we hope that they can gain more friends on the basis of this platform. And we hope that our positions here can be put into a discussion as one of the leading members of the communities who are organizing in the mining communities. So that Savete is here, and I see quite a few of other communities as well. This is now our platform, my leaders. But the paper accepts anything written on it. We must now act according to what we thought was the consensus amongst all of us. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I think Comrade Bobby's raised a number of important points and touched on a lot of the key issues and themes that we're going to be picking up on. I'm going to give to Comrade Mbodi to speak now and then open it up to the floor. And then we can engage both speakers and obviously raise any general points that people want to raise.
Amanda. Away too. Greetings, comrades. It is really indeed a privilege and an honor to come and share the perspectives on energy issues on behalf of NUMSA membership, which is around 360,000 plus. But before I do that, I want to teach you some salutation. I know many of you know Amanda Awetu. Now I'm going to teach you this Venda salutation, which says Manda, and all of you say Ashu. Yeah, I'm trying to, this is one of the 11 languages in South Africa. Manda, Ashu, Ashu, Manda. Thank you. Then I can start. Look, comrades, firstly, we need to reintroduce NUMSA to you because we do believe that NUMSA, the narrative that you pick up on newspapers somewhat caused confusion among the minds of progressive organizations. We need to clarify that. We are not against renewable energy. That is not even debatable. We are not against renewable energy. Number two, we are not ignorant of the climate change issues, which need us to act. And to act decisively and decisively now. That's 2 points that needs to be raised. The only challenge that we have is when we begin to talk of energy transition at all costs without even looking at the characterization of who is in charge of this transition, who is driving it, who are these people called the IPPs, who are they, where do they come from? If you want to challenge anything that is as global as this challenge, you need to also challenge global capital. We cannot come and look like we are neutral beings with regards to these issues. We need to look at the issue that the GS has raised, the issue of protecting jobs. It's very, very key. But at the same time, you remember that just transition is not only about jobs. It's also about looking at situations that are happening in places like Witbank, where the devastation of pollution and over-exploration of mines and the power stations that side cannot be ignored. That we cannot ignore. But we need to be saying, what is just transition? And when we ask ourselves that question, we should find answers. What is just transition? We do believe that we don't have to redefine it. All that we know we should do is to say, let's look at the context of the economy that we are having in South Africa. Can we be able to say we can cut, copy, and paste whatever is just transition in other countries? I want to agitate that we need to look at where we are, the structure of the economy, and also the challenges that we are facing. You can't talk of just transition without looking at the staggering numbers of unemployed people. For instance, when you talk of green jobs, you need to talk of net jobs. Because with green employment, there is green unemployment. We should be able to say the numbers that we get it. Are these the numbers that considers the fact that as it is now, the skill base of South Africans with regards to renewable energy, it's almost non-existent. I'm sure that other countries, perhaps, they've moved in many ways than we have. If you go and look at your EWC, which is your sectoral education training space, and you look at the kind of move that we are taking towards renewable, you would realize that the training, the pace of training and skilling our people is at a slower rate. Why is it that the confusion comes up when we talk of IPPs? There is distortion because there are people who want us to look like we are refusing the challenges of climate change, and we are refusing the energy mix, which is totally a lie. We agree that there should be a mix. We agree that ESCOM to start with need to go back to its original. In fact, in the past there used to be something called ESCOM Council, and it included the voice of the poor and the working class. Today, as I speak to you, the people who are sitting in that board, they are not representing any of the voices of the poor and the working class. So you can't be able to talk of energy democracy without including everyone. The voices of the poor are on the sideline. The voices of the workers, as you've heard Comrade GS say, just transition is something that perhaps looks very good in government documents when they are discussing with other people, but not when they are discussing with the poor and the working class. No one can point at a forum where people are taken very seriously with regard to energy issues. You go to hearings and they become academic. They tick the box that, oh, there were these public hearings. But whether they consider the things that are, and now I'm getting thirsty completely. And you broke a record. You didn't drink anything from the bucket. It is very, very important that when we talk about these things, we consider that there are people who want to distort. The unity of the poor and the working class is very, very paramount. There is no way we're going to destroy and distract and even inhibit capitalism if we're not united. But I can tell you now, what has happened, it has caused quite a lot of discomfort amongst the comrades that I've worked with. I've worked with some comrades from civil movement who ordinarily would trust me when we talk about issues around energy and issues around climate change. But because the narrative was distorted, it would look as if we are speaking from, as Comrade Devavi puts it, from both sides of the mouth, and that is not the correct posture. Energy democracy is very, very important, but here's another important thing. It is energy sovereignty. You can't just hand over everything that has to do with energy to people you don't characterize, you don't know. We need to go deep and look at who are these people. Will you be able to, which country, by the way, will run a successful government when the economy is driven by energy, and energy is in the hands of people who don't know? Which country will do that? It will be a country of people who says at all costs, and we can't afford to be that as NUMSA. We can't say at all costs. Let me look at what is written here, because otherwise I will be disciplined by the union for saying. Look, we have already raised an issue about the IPPs, that the IPPs in their current form are problematic. We agree that there should be a way of making sure that we achieve socially owned renewable sector. We need to involve our people, not only in hearings. The issue of say, let's go to public hearings, let's talk. It's not enough. We need to involve them in the pre-conceptual stage of any energy form that is going to serve them. And we therefore need to involve them all the way until there are processes that will evidently have to be shared democratically. The poor and the working class cannot be left out of this. And number two, the issues, we mustn't ignore this issue, the issue of technology. And the other time I made an example, and I said, and some of my comrades will disagree with me, but it's fine, it's part of what we should do when we debate. We shouldn't agree every time and all the time. We went to Estarito in Mexico. I keep on mentioning this, and I know Comrade Richard will say, but that's not a good example. I agree, it may not be a good example, it's an example of what we should avoid. When we arrived there, we realized that almost all the producers are producers of the technology are not of that place. They are Mexican, no, they are Spanish, they are French, and to name but a few. Now, in South Africa, you have got a manufacturing sector which is almost going extinct. And if you want to use a hypothesis that part of us getting jobs will be through the manufacturing of these technologies, we need to be very cautious and look deeper into exactly what will you be producing. Is it that you will be assembling? Is it that you will be importing everything? And we picked up also that these people who have got the technology and who've got the money, they say he who pays the piper calls the tune. He who's got the technology also calls the tune. In that you touch and fiddle with their stuff, they tell you that your warranty dies. You don't have the warranty. So your technicians, you need to look at those things. Your technicians would look like spanner boy. In South African language, spanner boy is someone who passes the spanners to do the work to the person who is actually doing the work. We need to look at the quality of whatever it is that will come out of transition. Technology is very, very important. Especially because in Africa, we don't know of a space of a country which is producing the technology that is moving us toward a renewable. I've already mentioned the issue of skills. So the skills need to be developed at a rapid pace at which we want to move. In fact, we should prepare, we should do these things fast. It shouldn't come as what I would call a heart attack reaction. When it is now hitting us, we would begin to run and want to train people. Let's train the people up front. Isn't it that we've got the IRP document which guides us where we should be going? Why is it that there is a disjuncture with regards to skilling our people, making them ready for the move? Because obviously we are not rejecting the move. We are rejecting a move without just transition. And the just transition should familiarize itself with the context at which we are. If you try to do cut, copy, and paste, you will fail a whole lot of people. I'm just about to wrap up. We have already indicated the issue of our challenges with regards to IPPs and how they came about. We had to ask ourselves this question, and I'm sure all of you are worker leaders who are from trade unions, who are from the civil movement. You should be asking yourself this question, especially if you are from the progressive movement, to say for whose class interest is all this. Now you need to characterize everything, including who are the players, and where does the money come from, who are the funders, who are the equity partners. All these things you need to characterize so that you come to an answer of to whose class interest. So we said, in essence, the issue of IPPs is problematic, looking at what we have there, who we have there, and also understanding that there is some family business that was going on there with the president at the pinnacle, and also in South African language, and people who come from the same family trying to give each other business. Now, all of them, they use the same narrative. They say we are averting a climate disaster. It is true that they are averting, but how are they averting it? Can we allow another capitalist grab? Isn't it that capitalism is a source of a huge amount of crises that they create, and then they wake up the next morning and begin to look messianic? They come with messages of salvation. They want to salvage, and they want to also be part of salvation. And I've got a problem with the person who does that, who speaks this way on the side of the mouth and this way on the side of the mouth. I think what we need to be able to do is to look at this. But again, I mentioned global capital, and I'm saying it is through internationalism which is informed by making sure that we want to deal with global capital with all the understandings of different contexts in different places on the planet, so that we may be able, because they seem to work very well together. The capitalists have got a good form of solidarity, I say in inverted commas, in that when we attended something that was happening, Wind Energy Conference in Cuba, we felt like we were misplaced because the people who were sitting there, they were talking serious business, they were passing each other business cards, and they were entrepreneurs. We were perhaps the only trade union or people who were speaking differently than them. And I assume that it will be very, very important that we begin to strengthen our international solidarity and deal with capital head on. But we can't do that if we simply believe that our challenges are the same as the challenges in the first world countries. I think we'll be selling each other a dream. We don't have the same challenges. It can be that the structure of the challenges is the same, because I mean capitalism has got a way of reproducing, even in different contexts, the problems look the same, but the extent of their effect is different according to where we are. So we think it's very, very important, comrades, that when we deal with the issue here, because to understand, climate change issues are not ring-fenced to South Africa. Even though there are some people who are saying we don't want to do anything, Trump and China and others that I'm not mentioning. But we should be able to do something. We shouldn't be able to say we can't do anything. We can't sit on our laurels. So as NUMSA, we are clear about that. And as to close and recapping, we are not against renewable energy. We are not against the fact that climate change is devastating and we need to change things. But we are saying it is through just transition, a properly thought out just transition. Thought out in that as we sit here, we shouldn't be talking past each other. The poor and the working class are represented by us in it. We need to be able to look at all things. That's why we are not saying as NUMSA, just transition is only about the shop floor issue, protection of jobs only. We are saying we come from societies and communities which are largely poor and working class. We can't come and begin to talk only of jobs in isolation also of looking at climate just transition for those people that are affected. But again, let's consider that when we talk of jobs, we need to talk of net. We mustn't sell each other figures which are not clear. Now I'm saying this, I know there is no media listening in, unless if there is someone from media with a hidden card. Oh, okay. Oh, that media. That media is very harmless. but I'm saying we need not abuse the space by speaking of climate change as something that to make the people fear, so that they suspend their thinking abilities and not think out things straight. I think when we share climate change, we also need to sell proper information and proper figures, so that when we go back to the floor, because we are a unit, when you go back, people will ask you, what kind of jobs are these? What is it net? How did you arrive to this? How did you arrive to, I'm just making an example, 250,000 jobs? And if there are hypotheses, you need to thrust them out. Let it be clear. Because otherwise, everybody will say, we've got a crisis and people are playing marbles. And they are selling us dreams that are not even clear for understanding. So NUMSA is very clear with regards to that. In conclusion, I speak like a pastor. Pastors, they conclude a whole lot. Look, the issue of privatization of Eskom is also not something that you, and I know there are different levels of anger and approach towards Eskom, precisely because of where the policies running that organization and governance and how they are running it. People begin to have anger against the name, and people walk out of the doors of Eskom. So I want to say this, comrades. it is important that we realize that the mix includes coal, and the mix includes a player called Eskom. That is one thing. Perhaps we need to be able to say, we need to go back to the original mandate of Eskom and look at it and say, maybe there were wrong players at that time. But the issue is, was it not to facilitate for cheaper electricity? And I'm not saying at all cost. Was it not about industrialization and making sure that manufacturing sector is powered? And I'm not saying, as NUMSA, we are saying that should be at all costs. That's why we are saying there should be a board representative of all the views, so that the people who are sitting there who are making decisions, and some of them are making very bad decisions. You have seen in the media how poor the governance is. And we do want to agree with the GS when it says, we somewhat do believe that there is a way in which other people are conniving to make this to collapse soon as possible, not for our benefit, but for their benefit. And do we say everything at all costs? No, we consider for whose class interest it is. And that is where NUMSA is, and we are saying no to privatization. Because privatization of anything, including water, the Comrade GS has said, is detrimental to us. We are without jobs. What will be the use of having the white elephants, whether they are of renewable energy, whether they are of coal, and people can see them, but they are unable to afford electricity. It is not about being proximate to the grid. It is useless if you can't afford it. We have got to afford it. Yeah, I think what has been given to me, or I'm told to start forever. I'm not going to call an altar call because normally pastors do that. We are for clean, as NUMSA, we are for clean, affordable energy. And it is the context of our economy that makes us say that. Perhaps other places elsewhere they're not worrying about affordability, but here we've got to get worried about affordability and cleanness of the energy. And we want democratic control of the poor and the working class, the workers, and also civil movements and the communities, organized communities, getting together, owning that which is their mix, or owning that which is their desired energy mix. And we can't do that when the government is closing doors for us. We need to break certain doors and to play in the policy formulation stage. Because at the stage where we begin to formulate policy and keep them in our own resolutions and not take them to where it matters most, we will have very good policies, but which will be meaningless. We will have to break certain doors down. Since the doors are being closed, you can see that, as we've indicated, the issue of just transition is not on the table anyway. The workers are unable to say conclusively that the government is trying to talk to us about it. We are talking about just transition amongst ourselves here. In practice, this means we are for a socially owned renewable sector that will be directly owned by the working class and the communities, thereby shutting out the people who want to make profit at all costs. And we are for the development of skills. And rapidly, as we want to move, we need to be training people so that we don't get to a situation where we transit. And on transition, we don't have the necessary skills. We have got to get skills from China when we have got a context of unemployment in the country. We must address the class interest into the energy system. The class interest should be clear, should be transparent. We should be able to establish that. And meaningful participation of the working class in all planned meetings related to energy production and distribution. We should have our voice heard. And there should be transparency, accountability, particularly on the part of Eskom and other public enterprises. Because when we talk of socially owned renewable sector, and you have got an Eskom that is also teetering towards a disaster, it is not helpful. We need to make sure that Eskom is fully accountable. That is part of energy democracy. We need to make them account. If the parliament is not, we as a civil movement, we should be able to constantly account. there should be issues, full consultation, proper, with regards to carbon tax consultation. Very important because, as in all the other taxes, the rich are able to pass them down to the poor without any struggle. They are able to do that. So we need to have a look at it, understand it for what it is, and we must be fully cognizant of the scheme so that capital does not just simply fill their pockets. And we think that is where we stand as NUMSA with regards to the topic. And we are saying we agree, Comrade Zaki, we agree that we need to be decisive. Our action needs to be clear. They say the revolution will not be televised, but if so, if it will be televised of people who are spending 3 days fighting these IPPs in their form, if that will be televised, it won't be a bad thing. But the fact of the matter is something needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. Abandla, Manda.
So I think between the two comrades, some very key and important issues have been raised, which are going to come up again and again during the next 3 days. I think Comrade Barbie raised, pointed to the often very contradictory positions that government takes on the issue. On the one hand, kind of making commitments around climate change, but on the other hand, continuing to get involved in coal projects and coal IPPs. I think Comrade Barbie also raised very strongly the opposition to privatization that the unions have been expressing, and that energy, water, health, education need to be retained in public hands. And also the issue of jobs and the real danger of increasing unemployment in an already hugely, a country where there's already huge unemployment. And I think Comrade Mbodi echoed many of those themes and raised the question of, we can't just blindly accept renewable energy. While we support renewable energy, we also need to be looking at who and how it's being introduced, and in whose interest it's being introduced, and whose interests it represents in the way it's being introduced. So I think it comes to the question of ownership and control, and that seems to be what is emerging strongly from the unions, and it relates to the issue of energy sovereignty. Comrade Mbodi also raised the issue of technology and who controls the technology, which is something that I hope we'll be able to get onto tomorrow. And then just overall, the importance of the unions being involved in a discussion around the just transition and what that future energy sector should look like. That problem being that it's being done piecemeal rather than with an overall vision that government is engaging the unions on. So I think those are some of the key points that came up in those inputs, and thank you very much, Comrade Barbie and Comrade Mbodi, for that. I just wanted to give 10 minutes, open it up for 10 minutes or so. Whoa, okay. Baker, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go for that.
Okay. Two things that I would like to pose to both, I think NUMSA in particular, because they are industrial workers organizing, particularly in the manufacturing sector, as well as energy sector, I think. And from your perspective, as you are also busy engaging internally, and I hope so externally, around the trade union perspective of a just transition. So, so if there's this thing in NUMSA of a energy mix, which is coal and renewable energy. So now, think about your sector where you are organizing the workers, which is in manufacturing sector in particular. Don't you think that you should also do a study of where are the coal mines, where most of your coal mine workers which of the coal mines supply ESCOM with coal,
for Eskom to generate that electricity, and which sectors, manufacturing sectors, is Eskom. Let's say you organize a VW, Mercedes-Benz. How much of that is being supplied to your industry? If you talk of the concerns to saving jobs, job losses, etc., etc. So I think the thinking should be around that, because if we say you need to move how the economy of the country is organized at the moment, it has to change that whole, chain of production from coal, energy, and including the manufacturing sector. I think that's where maybe the discussion should center around. If you ask, don't just tell us about 250,000 jobs in the manufacturing sector. Let's break down these jobs in terms of, job creation from a climate jobs perspective. I think that's the engagement that we need to have.
Yes, two questions. I think you mentioned that you recently signed a loan to the Chinese, $2.5 billion loan. The question is, how are you going to use this money, first? And second, if you are planning to get into renewables through this Chinese cooperation agreement or whatever that you are doing. But I think this is one of the crucial things. If you think about investing in renewable energies, and you think that the new main actor in geopolitical terms is China, the thing is that if you don't relate to them only, or if you only relate to them through signing loans to pay debts that you have, because I also hear that you are into big debt troubles, you will be stuck in this, vicious circle of getting loans from the Chinese. I don't know what are the terms. Maybe the terms are really beneficial and you are paying a very low interest rate in a long period. I don't know. And then you will not be able to develop your industrial base, your new jobs, and the like. And I think it might be a good opportunity, seeing not only this as a crisis or as a new sort of imperialism, but try to get the Chinese into your plants, into your own plants, and telling them they are building, really cheap wind farms. They are the ones constructing and installing 35 wind turbines per day in China. So I think they know how to do that. And maybe you could eventually get into this win-win cooperation that they keep repeating all the time to all our countries from the global south. So I think the question is, what are the terms of this agreement? And if you really think as a trade union in Eskom of dollars, that China is an opportunity to go into the path that you are explaining to us today.
Thanks. No, my one is not just a question. I would like to add a comment on what was already said by two speakers. I will start first with a comment on the point that he touched on regarding the privatization of Eskom. Like, for example, we are saying the energy that we are seeing for the future is free, which is suddenly, but that is not reflected on the tariff prices of the IPPs. Because when we talk about the renewables, it means you are not buying fuel for the energy. That energy is for free. But when you've got IPPs that are selling to Eskom at 380, while Eskom is selling at 85 cents per kilowatt hour, then that really exemplifies that this project has been hijacked, you see, by the profiteers, that their main purpose and motives is to ensure that they extract profit out of all this. And we can see on the finances of Eskom on how they have deteriorated starting from the period of 2012 when the IPPs came in. I mean, they were signed in 2011, but most of them were brought out around 2015, 2016. Now Eskom today has got a deal of 21 billion that was not there. And now when you do a trade balance between the two, to say if Eskom would have generated those gigawatt hours in general, like for example, if you take the financial year of 2017, Eskom spent 21 billion purchasing power from IPPs at an average price of 1.88 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, if Eskom would have generated that internally, they would have spent 9 billion, saving 12 billion. You understand? So that's why we're saying we need to look into this, because seemingly the whole environmental challenges are being hijacked by people who want to ensure that their main purpose there is to suck out their profits. Now, another issue that I want to touch into, the renewable energy policy white paper was formulated in 2003. I'm going to speak about jobs now. Now, in South Africa, the unemployment rate is 27.2%. Now, if you take the gross, I think we go up to 40%, whereby you are going to include the discouraged work seekers, you understand? So that's 40% of the labor force that is not employed. Now, you talk about a renewable energy policy of 2003. Now, that envisioned 10,000 gigawatt energy that was going to be supplied in 2013. Ask yourself, what has been done? Because I'm going to make an example now. One of the leading manufacturing companies when it comes to wind turbines, Vestas, Nordex. We don't have a manufacturing plant in South Africa, but we are saying this is the future. Now, that's why we said, if this is the future, we have to look at the triple challenges. We have to look at poverty, we look at jobs, we have to look at the inequality. In the current form, on a policy perspective, I'm not even looking at the contracts, the power purchase agreement contracts, that on their own, if we can look into them, they are something else, you understand? So just on the policy on its own, it's just something that was formulated, but not looking into the needs of the people. Surely there were needs of other people that we know, but not for South Africans. Now, to touch on this one of the manufacturing jobs that I've already said about it, about Nordex and Vestas, we are saying if the IRP is saying this is the future, we need wind, then surely we must open our manufacturing plants. The quarterly labor survey that was issued out last month, 105,000 jobs were lost in the manufacturing sector. You understand? So the base for this, it has to start from there. You understand? Now, let me move further and touch on Comrade what he said about the power purchase agreements with ESCOM and the IPPs. Now, how does government agree to a contract that says whether ESCOM wants this energy or not, they are going to pay for it? Remember, ESCOM sells energy, you understand? Now, but how the contracts are set up is that ESCOM is compelled to buy power from the IPPs, whether they want to or not. And to an extent, if there are issues of grid stability, like you understand, if there is an oversupply, frequency will be affected. So to ensure that the grid is stable, you have to maintain the frequency within the reasonable limits. Now, in ensuring that, if ESCOM issues an instructions to the renewables, let me put it on IPPs as a whole. Now, ESCOM must pay the IPPs, although that energy has not been used. You understand? Like, for example, we did from 2012 up until 2018, ESCOM paid IPPs, I think, 642 million without energy being delivered on the grid due to deemed energy payments, as I'm saying, is part of the clause on those contracts. So what I'm trying to say, the contracts on their own, they are not there to serve the interest of the poor and the working class. The contracts are set up to an extent that there is a certain class, a capitalist class, that must benefit. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And then I think it was Richard. And then I'm going to give the two comrades a chance to respond.
Thanks. Mine is a very short question for Comrade Harvey. This strike you're planning for 3 days about the IPPs, is that for the IPP program going forward? There must be no more bid windows? Or are you saying in addition the IPPs that are up and running already through bid windows 1, 4.5 must be closed down or cancelled, or so are you saying no more going forward, or the existing IPPs something must happen to them? I wasn't sure what she was saying. It's right.
Okay. Can I let Comrade Barbie respond? I think there was the Chinese one, and then Chinese question, then Richard's, and then Bobby can respond.
Well, good as Africa, nobody knows what are the terms of that law. In fact, a leader of the opposition party asked that question specifically to the head of government in South Africa, President Ramaphosa. Tell us what are the terms, what are the conditions attached to this law. He ate water. And he waffled his way out of the question. He never provided even an indication as to what could be the terms And he was allowed to escape there with medals, basically. As we speak here, I don't know Numsa or anyone here in this house, in this workshop, nobody knows what are the terms. And I guess that's one of the close guarded secrets between the president of China and that of South Africa. All we heard was the headlines about the 2.3 billion or 399 billion rands that is now headed over from the China Development Bank to Eskom. Now, we are extremely worried as to what could be the terms. We've seen what Chinese are capable of doing everywhere else in the African continent. That this may be the first foot they put inside the house. I don't know whether you know the story about the camel, a very popular story in South Africa about the operations of the camel. The story that says the camels liked by African communities, that a camel in a very, very cold winter night asked to the owner of a, don't call it a cave, just to put in its head because it was extremely cold. And the owner says, fine, you can put in your head. And the camel says, can I push it with my neck? My neck is also freezing.
No, you want to get the whole body
before the owner of this cave knew what was happening, the whole camel was inside, and there was no longer a space for both of them. The guy had to leave. We are worried about that with the Chinese thing, that this may be just the beginning of a new colonialization of not just South Africa, but of the rest of the African continent. We've seen what the Chinese are doing in Angola. We've seen what they are doing in the east of Africa, and we've seen what they are doing everywhere else in the continent. And we are extremely worried. Perhaps one of the issues that we must demand in that 3 days is to say we want to know what are the terms of that loan. One of the propositions we have placed to the Central Committee of SAFTU is a proposition that says we were one of the people who objected to there's something called the Public Investment Corporation. We objected to that money of the public sector pension funds being used as a cash cow in order to address the crisis that was created by the looters of the state in the recent period, but not as a principle. We were objecting to the fact that these guys were not owning up to the destruction that they have caused. But of course, we want a PIC, we want a provident fund, we want a pension fund that can play a role in strengthening the state-owned enterprises to enhance their role in providing these basic needs to all of the people of this country. In our country, unfortunately, that's not even an issue that we are debating, because in an engagement between labor and the state, the issues of the state of the finances of Eskom will obviously crop up as part of the discussion about the just transition. And those issues will then be explored further as to whether pensions and provident funds cannot be used to address the crisis that Eskom is currently facing. There is no such a discussion. All we hear is the headline. We have clinched a deal. And again, our people so desperate for a deal to get out of Eskom probably says, fine, this is a good thing to do. Nobody knows what are the conditions, nobody knows what are the strings attached. We just in the blank And we don't even know exactly what ESCOM is going to do with that money. Is it going to throw it to the back, to the big dark hole of management inefficiencies and bonuses? Or is it going to be about strengthening the institution to play a role going forward, in particular now that we can see quite clearly that the IPP is about elbowing out ESCOM eventually and handing over wholly the energy and to the friends of the president, the multinational corporation. So it's quite worrying. You asked a very, very important question. There was then a second question about
The 3 days, maybe 3 days.
is a strike notice retrospective. No, it has to be. We've not talked about that, by the way. Thanks for raising it. It has to be. You can't say the previous teams who arrived first must be allowed in, and only those that have just been signed into by Ramaphosa must be stopped. I think the demand must be that all of these programs must be stopped, and that we must have a discussion with the state about what do we do about the crisis that ESCOM is facing in the context of my previous answer to Sebastian's question. So I think, I don't know what other communists are thinking, but you can't say the 5 must go ahead. We will try to stop the 27 of Jeff Hadebe and Abafumbisi and all of that. No, I think it would be wrong. We must demand that the whole thing must be halted, and that we must talk about how we strengthen an ESCOM and how we can hand over the whole energy to the hands of the working people, the people of this country as a whole, to manage it to the benefit of the people of this country as a whole. And that should be the demand I think we should advance.
Okay. Comrade Mbodi, I'm going to give you a few minutes just to, and then I think we must bring the session to a close.
Yeah, no, we must agree with Comrade Tembeka. It is very important to be factual when it comes to figures. And our researchers need to be tied with regards, so that we may not be found waffling also. But here the point is that, I mean, from what we're picking up from you, there is quite a lot that can be done with regards to making sure that we have got clear, if we're talking of data, our data should be such that it becomes very, very clearly calculated, and the research needs to be on point. And I'm going to say this to you. We are doing that, but we do believe that we need to help each other here. Because believe it when we tell you, we as NUMSA, we're not only looking at the issue of protection of jobs only. We're also looking at the issue of the social impact. That's why at some stage we even went for Section 77, looking at the impact that it will have on local economies, where the local economies has been established around coal mines and power stations. We can't ignore that. You've got people who, those towns were built because there were those mines, there were those power stations. When each one closes, it actually means closing down of that local economy. All those things need to be real time. I'm saying this also so that I may also explain that at the time when we had a fully fledged RDG, a research development group, when people were working in the manufacturing side of the renewables. And if I can tell you now, all of them are not there anymore. They are retrenched. The companies have folded simply because there is no market, even when there is introduction of IPPs or introduction of renewables in the country. It's not literally translating to figures. And so when you do your research needs to be real time. We agree that's what we are going to do, that's what we are doing continually. And we do believe also other people like AIDC and all other people who are researching forms a very important part of this, so that we can not only trust only our researchers, but read all researches, including the researches of people we don't agree with. Because as NUMSA, we don't only say we consider what we agree with. we consider everything so that we have a strong explanation to our research and where we're going. I think to answer in short, we agree with what you're saying.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you, a big thank you to both our comrades, Comrade Harvey and Comrade Mbodi. I think they've highlighted a lot of the very key issues that have been bubbling under the surface, that kind of inform a lot of the debates that we need to be discussing and raising and taking forward. So thank you very much. I thought that was very useful, very important what the comrades are saying. And can I invite everybody to have some tea now? It's 11:15. Well, it's generously 11:15. On a generous basis, it's 11:15. So on a generous basis, can we come back at 11:30? So if you can just take some tea and come back. Yes.